Hi, and welcome to another episode of Tech Tuesday UK podcast. Today we're going to be shooting a podcast with two eminent statesmen of this country. We do have Dr. Mike Short, CBE, with the former Chief Scientific Advisor of the UK government, and we have Lord Karan Bilimoria, who probably needs no introduction. As you all know, what Tech Tuesday UK is all about. It's a free-flowing discussion, no script, no design questions or answers. That's it. So hold on to your breath, and we'll see you at this other broadcast. There. Thanks.
And that was when I started working on the UK-India relationship to build trade between our two countries. And if you can put it into perspective, it was £5 billion per year.
Yeah. So what lessons, given your experience in higher education in both the UK and India, could we transfer with each other?
And I was officially appointed by the British minister at the time, and my fellow co-chair, the Indian co-chair, came and introduced himself to me, and it was none other than Narayan Murthy.
Yeah. Lord Bilimoria, if I may call you Karen on this occasion, please
yes.
Call me Mike. Welcome to the Tech Tuesday podcast.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
We recently did a podcast with the outgoing Indian High Commissioner, so
Yes.
it's a great honour that you're following in this tradition.
A good person's footsteps to follow.
Well, I think we're standing on the shoulders of giants, really, and the reality is we had a lot of very interesting conversations. But you know, you've had a long tradition of both living in the UK and working in the UK. Close to 40 years, I think it is now. Could you just say a little bit about some of the things you're doing today?
I've always considered myself, when it comes to my identity, that I'm Indian, I'm a Zoroastrian Parsi, and I'm a British Asian, and I'm British. And I'm very proud of all those parts of my identity and feel entirely at home, both in India and in the UK, to the extent that when I step off the plane in either country, I feel at home, which is a wonderful feeling. And at the moment, in my career, having born in Hyderabad in India, 7 schools because my father was in the Indian Army, moving around, university at India at the age of 16, I skipped a couple of years, graduated at 19, came to study in the UK, studied for 7 years, qualified as a chartered accountant with EY, got my law degree from Cambridge University, and instead of becoming a lawyer or an accountant or a banker, I started my own business and built up Cobra Beer from scratch, which I'm proud to say today is a household name. I sold my shares in Cobra Beer just under 2 years ago, and side by side with my business, I developed 2 parallel routes apart from my entrepreneurship. One was academia, and I've been a university chancellor twice, and I now hold academic positions at Oxford and Cambridge and at the London Business School, and my political career. And I've been proud to be in the House of Lords, and last month it was 20 years since I've been a member of the House of Lords as an independent crossbench peer. And I think I was the 3rd youngest peer when I joined, and I'm still one of the younger peers because our average age is 72. So it's a part of my life that I absolutely love. And then, of course, overriding all this is my Indo-British work, which has continued side by side, officially now for 23 years.
Yeah. Can I thank you for all that you've done for Anglo-Indian relationships? I think some of your contributions, I think, are perhaps in your summary, but not as strong to the broader public as they really are in practice, if I may put it that way. I first went to India back in 1989, more to do with teaching mobile communications as to how to build networks, how to actually design them and build them based on my experience here in the UK. And I then did 30 years, but I've been going to India every couple of years really ever since. So it's great to see the Anglo-Indian relationships have built up so much together. And you must be really proud of the recently announced UK-India trade agreement and how that may make life easier and trade easier between our two countries. Would you like to comment on the trade agreement?
Yes, in fact, this goes back to, ironically, just a couple of weeks ago, I was honored to receive another honorary doctorate from the University of York. And one of my fellow recipients, in fact, the day after me, was Narayan Murthy, the founder of Infosys. And when I was, in 2003, appointed as the UK co-chair of the Indo-British Partnership. There was a big event at the Locarno Room in the Foreign Office, and a huge Indian delegation was there, and I was officially appointed by the British minister at the time, and my fellow co-chair, the Indian co-chair, came and introduced himself to me, and it was none other than Narayan Murthy. And his first words to me were, "I've never met a bad Parsi," which made me feel great. And we became good friends from that time onwards. And of course, since then, his son-in-law has become Prime Minister of our country. And that was when I started working on the UK-India relationship to build trade between our two countries. And if you can put it into perspective, it was £5 billion per year. That was it in goods and services at that time, 23 years ago. And I then founded the UK-India Business Council with the backing of the UK government at the time. They gave me £1 million, because before that, the Indo-British Partnership was running on a budget of £72,000 and one official in the Foreign Office and one employee. And Asia House gave me a venue and building a board. And we started from there, and we demonstrated what we could do. And I organized and hosted the first ever, to this date, the only UK-India Investment Summit, which concluded with Prime Minister Tony Blair and Dr. Manmohan Singh, the Prime Minister of India at the time, closing the conference. And it was a huge success. 100 business leaders from India, 100 business leaders from here. And the government said, "UK, you're doing all this for £72,000? I said, "Well, that's all I've got." They said, "Come on, we're going to back you," and they gave me £1 million. And that's how we set up the UK-India Business Council. And that's when, in 2007, we started working on the EU-India Free Trade Agreement. That just took years to happen. And in the meantime, when I was president of the CBI, the Confederation of British Industry, in the beginning of 2022, January 2022, we started working on the UK-India Free Trade Agreement after we left the European Union. And it took 3.5 years, 14 rounds of negotiations, and I did my best to help that whole process. It was very challenging, several delegations to India in that intervening period and interactions. And in the end, in July last year, I remember I was in Florence, and I got a phone call from number 10 at 9 at night saying, "We need you at Chequers at 10:30 tomorrow morning." So I did whatever I could, and I managed to get there. I changed in the car on the way to Chequers when I landed at Heathrow, got there at 10:30, and of course the two Prime Ministers signed the Free Trade Agreement, and it has now come into force officially on the 15th of July this year. And as one of my roles now, I'm co-chair of the India All-Party Parliamentary Group. We organized a photograph on the steps of Westminster Hall, the 900-year-old hall in Parliament, of parliamentarians across both houses, the House of Commons, House of Lords, cross-party, to celebrate that free trade agreement coming into effect. And that felt so good to me. And of course, now I'm chair of the International Chamber of Commerce in the UK and regional coordinator for Europe, 35 countries. And to be able to now continue and see it in action has been great. And here's the irony of it all. When I set up the UK-India Business Council in 2007, we started working the EU-India Free Trade Agreement. That has now come and been signed in earlier this year. And so that's also happened.
But a lot has happened in India since you grew up as a boy in India. A lot has changed. India is a strong manufacturing nation. It always has been, but is even stronger today. India is a much stronger services nation than it ever was. Would you like to comment on the changes from the India side as well?
Well, the India that I was brought up in as a child was an economy that, quite frankly, was going nowhere. It had a very low or no growth rate. It was a socialist model. It was a very protected, inward-looking, insular economy. The consumer was starved of choice. There were a few brands and a few big companies that had the monopoly in most areas. For example, cars. There were 3 models of cars. You could either get a Fiat 1950s model, or a Triumph Herald, which my parents had, again 1950s model, or a Morris Oxford, the Ambassador, 1950s model. That was it. To get a land phone line, minimum 1 year waiting time, if not much more, if you could get one. So entrepreneurship was suppressed, and that was the India that I was brought up in. And then in 1991, I always believed, by the way, when I set up in business, I believed India would open up one day. I believed India would liberalize. And that happened when I started Cobra Beer working on it in 1989, 1990. It hadn't happened. In 1991, a year after I started Cobra Beer, exporting it from Bangalore to the UK, India officially liberalized when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, and the liberalization started. It took about a decade for that liberalization to actually take off. And it was around 2002, with the Indian government of that time, the BJP government, where the India shining period, where the growth rates started to hit almost double-digit GDP growth rates in the early 2000s. And then India hasn't looked back since then. The entrepreneurial spirit of India has been unleashed. The consumer has huge choice in every aspect, every consumer good, whether it's cars, whether it's telecoms, whether it's FMCG consumer goods, and it's a different India. And I just see that has transformed into a country that was going nowhere to a country today that is the fastest growing major economy in the world.
So just relating UK to India from a mobile industry point of view, when I first went to India in '89, landline were the queues you've just described, but the mobile had great prospects of taking over from the landline, but it was held back by huge import duty, held back by a lack of licensing of private operators, held back by a lack of perhaps capability to actually deliver everything that they wanted to deliver. But when I was there some 15 months ago at India Mobile Congress, you could see why there were 175,000 people talking about mobile. It's because India is now the second largest mobile market in the world, with 1.33 billion customers using mobile. It is huge, and you can see it giving lessons for the rest of the world. We can also see that back in '89, the UK had been the second largest mobile market in the world with a much smaller population. But you're reaching your rightful place, if I can put it that way, and should one day be the #1 mobile market in the world. But some of the services that are now available are really showing lessons for the rest of the world. Some of the mobile streaming of Hollywood films to a mobile handset, or even cricket matches to a mobile handset, the likes of which are perhaps an alternative to television if you don't have a television. Certainly an alternative to fixed lines, as you said already. But I think going forward, what would be interesting to know is, where is India going? You know, if we look forward to 2040 or 2050, where is India going? You have such hugely talented engineers, hugely talented skills. Where can a country the size of India go? I think we know the India Mobile Congress this year is going to be called Beyond Boundaries. In other words, they're scaling up beyond India itself. How do you see India as a future nation?
India is a country which traditionally has always had huge challenges, and those challenges still remain. But progress has been made in such a big way. One example, since 2014, so let's say in the last 12 years, nearly 300 million people have been taken out of poverty. I mean, that's huge. And there's still, sadly, people who need to be taken out of poverty. That increasing middle class in India is happening in front of our eyes. On the other hand, you may say that India is now the 5th largest economy in the world. Depending on the exchange rate, it could be the 4th largest economy in the world. It will soon be the 3rd largest economy in the world. That is just a matter of a few years. I personally believe at some stage, maybe by 2060, India will be the largest economy in the world. But what is important is that India also has to increase its per capita GDP. The per capita GDP at the moment is about $3,000. It needs to get up to at least $30,000. And that will take some time. And that's when you will have the vast majority of India being a middle-class country, an affluent country, where every citizen will be well off. And that per capita GDP is a real measure that is, and it is going up all the time. So I have great faith that that will continue to happen, as long as you have an environment where entrepreneurship is encouraged, and where you have one of the greatest strengths of India is its robust democracy. And if you look back at this country that is 80 years old, I mean, it's an ancient country, but in its modern form as a republic, a democracy, independence happened in 1947. And that democracy has been so robust. It has shown that it can have free and fair elections where the electorate speak their voice. And there is the wish of the people is delivered through democracy, not just on a national basis, but also on a federal state basis as well. So you have the two dimensions of a federal system where the chief ministers of states are literally the prime ministers of their states, have a huge amount of autonomy, in many ways compete with each other, and yet you have this country that is the biggest populous country in the world today, and a giant country and an emerging global economic superpower with the defense and the foreign services all managed centrally. And yet another point, unlike many of India's neighbors, the Indian armed forces have never, ever interfered in politics. So you've got that stability, where you're not going to have a coup, you're going to have democratic stability. And then compounded with all that, and the scale of India, is another of India's great strengths that people don't talk about enough. India is the most diverse country in the world by far. No other country comes even close to it. Diverse in language, diverse in religions, diverse in races, diverse in terrains, diverse in culture, diverse in food. I could go on. From the Himalayan mountains to the deserts of Rajasthan, to the jungles in the middle of India, to the tropical areas down in the south. It is a country of phenomenal diversity, and that diversity brings India great strength. And on top of all that, you have the cleverest people in the world. And that is demonstrated time after time. I mean, you look at the Indian Institutes of Technology, the IITs, 1.5 million school leavers sit the entrance exam. The first cut is 150,000, and then about now it's close to 20,000 who get places in the IITs around the country. It's more competitive than Oxford, Cambridge, Harvard, and Yale combined, multiplied by I don't know how many times.
Yeah. So what lessons, given your experience in higher education in both the UK and India, could we transfer with each other? Can we help each other with higher education in a different way? Some of your role and activities with international students may come into play here. How can we transfer some of this knowledge and capability? Not to be resident in one place, but to help each other.
What has happened over the years is you've had families like mine where I've been fortunate that 3 generations of my family, my mother, both my grandfathers were educated in Britain, went back to India. I was educated here. I came up with my idea for my business. I stayed on.
Yeah.
My children have now gone to British universities. One is still at a British university. So the international students coming from India to the UK has always been a great source of strength to not only to the UK, but to India as well. Because what is happening now is the largest number of international students used to be Chinese. The Indians have actually overtaken the Chinese. And yes, some of them stay on to work for a while over here. Some will work in other parts of the world, but many of them go back to India. And that alumni base we have now of British educated Indian students is one of the strongest bridges between our countries, because they are forever ambassadors for the UK and the UK-India relationship. To the extent that our Chevening scholars, for example, the largest number of Chevening scholars in the world per year come from India. And whenever we have high-level visits to India, we invariably will invite the Chevening alumni who are now in leading positions in different fields in India. So, and the cross-border research that we can do. So when I was Chancellor of the University of Birmingham, remember we had a session at the British Council in Delhi, and our Deputy Vice Chancellor, the Pro-Vice Chancellor at the time, gave a presentation on the field-weighted impact of cross-border research. And he gave an example of the University of Birmingham, the University of Chandigarh in India. Our individual field-weighted scores, well, I'm using rough figures, say Birmingham was 2.6 and Punjab was 2.3. When they did research together on a particular aspect, whether it's air pollution or whatever you want to choose, 4.5 instead of 2.6 and 2.3. So almost 3 times higher when you do it cross-border. And we compared it when we did research with Birmingham and Harvard, and say Birmingham is 2.6 and Harvard is 2.9, it was around 5. So very similar. A multiple factor when you do cross-border research. That's what's going to happen, because India is no longer an outsourcing center. India is now where research and innovation is being done collaboratively.
We're seeing that in mobile as well, clearly working on 4G and then taking some leadership positions on 5G, where India is probably ahead of Europe today, and on 6G wishing to lead even further into the next generation of mobile. But I think the collaboration point you make is very, very strong. I think the use of alumni in each other's countries is very strong, and I'm not sure we do enough of that today or recognize the importance of alumni. Some universities might want to work harder to make more of their alumni as well.
Well, I'll give you another example. Last year, I helped to lead the first ever delegation of British business schools to India. And we took 33 UK business schools to India. We had a conference, we had interactions with India's leading business schools like the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, IIM Ahmedabad. This year, I'm leading the delegation again, and we're going to have 45 business schools going to India. It's going to be even bigger. And the most popular subject chosen by Indian students when they come to the UK to study is business. So that's just one example of this never happened before. And we're doing it now, and it's wonderful.
Thank you for doing that. I think we'd like to publicise that a bit more to try and encourage uptake. In terms of, though, looking forward again, are there some other things we need to do beyond the university system to make sure the next generation of talent can work internationally? Are there some things that would be helpful in your eyes to help follow in your footsteps, so to speak?
There is always lots more that could be done, and we've got initiatives, for example, the Global Talent, where you attract talented Indians to come and set up and grow their businesses here in the UK. What I'd like to see more of is British students studying at Indian universities and interacting more with Indian universities. That day will come when you will have British students competing for places at the top Indian institutions. And as the Indian institutions get higher and higher ranked in the world, which is happening at the moment, I'm proud to say that the UK universities, along with America, we have the best universities in the world. You take the top 10, 4 are American, 4 are British, 1 is Singapore, 1 is Swiss. And I always say our population is 70 million, America is nearly 350 million. They have 4, we have 4. We do pretty well. And in innovation and research, we do phenomenally well, where we should be spending much more in the UK. I believe we don't spend as much as a percentage of GDP on R&D and innovation that we should. And yet, which universities have the most Nobel Prizes in the world? Cambridge University in the UK and Harvard University in America. So, we're very good, but we need to enhance this partnership between India and the UK and do this even better. And if we can get corporates involved, and you make it a corporate and university and government-helped collaborative, then the research and innovation is amazing potential.
I agree with that. I'd also say that some of the work done since Jeremy Hunt commissioned the report on spin-outs from universities has some interesting lessons for Anglo-Indian relationships. Some of those spin-outs were by Indian students who were maybe based in the UK university system, but those spin-outs have actually gone on to help show some leadership in innovation in Europe.
Yes.
And I think if we could see more spin-outs from Indian universities, that would also uplift the interest in Indian universities as well.
That's happening, by the way. In the IITs, they have these amazing innovation hubs, which I've seen firsthand at IIT Madras, I've seen it at IIT Delhi, and that is happening and will happen much more. And of course, the other part of it is not only, it's the encouragement of spin-outs, which America does very well, and you have the cluster concept. Now again, clusters are very important. That is happening in India as well. You have Gift City in Ahmedabad, which has come up really well. British universities are now opening up in Gift City. You have clusters in automobile cluster in Madras. In Bangalore, you have the when I say Madras, it's Chennai. In Bangalore, you have the IT cluster. Similarly here, we have the Cambridge cluster, which is phenomenally powerful in life sciences and tech around the university. And similarly at Oxford as well, where we had the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine during the pandemic with an Indian company, the Serum Institute of India, producing over 2 billion doses, saving tens of millions of lives around the world.
Yeah, so I've seen those in Bangalore and in Hyderabad as well, but I think there's a visibility internationally question, both of the stronger UK spin-outs and the stronger Indian spin-outs. How can they work together better for scale and for international scale?
Yes.
And I think having missions, the way you described them earlier on, of universities meeting universities, that's great, but we need to then bring out the spin-outs in the process, I think, to have some international visibility.
No, and I'm seeing examples. We could talk for hours about it. One example, I shared the platform at Founders Forum in Mumbai a few months ago, and one of the entrepreneurs on the panel with me was British-based, of European origin, opening up a telecoms company in India, manufacturing in India, and within 5 years becoming a unicorn, $1 billion valued company. That's what's possible.
I also think the way India is treating the digital economy is slightly different. For example, some of the identity management with Aadhaar and UPI, some of the approach towards banking, where nobody should be left behind in the banking arena. You can start to see financial services and e-commerce and lessons being taken from other parts of the world as well. I think that's an interesting area of development.
To one of your earlier points, when it comes to telecoms, from a country where you had to wait a minimum of 1 year to get a landline, India leapfrogged.
Yeah.
So the mobile telecommunications in India,
Yeah.
I find when I travel around the world, is my favorite place.
Yeah.
It is so cost effective and affordable, and you can see it. You can see it in any household you go into, any hotel you go into. Everyone has a mobile phone, invariably a smartphone. They're all connected. The best thing about it is, because it's affordable, it is inclusive. And because it's inclusive, you can use it to get people into things like financial inclusion. And the amount of financial inclusion that's been enabled by India's not only mobile telephony, but India's Aadhaar and UPI, it's incredible. And if you look at the size of the Indian banks, the public sector banks, they're huge in terms of hundreds of millions of customers. And when it comes to payment, using QR codes, you can go in a stall on the road and with your phone pay for something very low price with your phone, and it's done. And it's cheap transaction that doesn't cost the person actually selling you the product much. It's affordable and it's inclusion. So I think it's incredible the way that's happened. And we could, by the way, we could learn from that. And identity cards, I've been somebody who's always been pro-identity cards. I know that there are all the arguments against it. But the world that we live in today, and all the threats that we're under, identity cards are a very good way, from a security point of view particularly.
Well managed, I agree, and making sure they're well managed. But I think the leapfrogging is not just mobile ahead of fixed, but it's also services in India ahead of many services in Europe.
Yes.
And I think we need to be careful about how do we learn lessons from that, what fits where and why, and can we work together. We've talked about the skill side. What about the capital side, the investment capital side? How do you see that's changed over the years?
Again, with India opening up as an economy, you can draw a parallel over here. And when I came as a student in the early 80s, the UK was very much a closed economy. It was called the sick man of Europe. And it was Margaret Thatcher, whether you like her or not, she is the one that powered entrepreneurship, championed entrepreneurship, people like Richard Branson. It's Margaret Thatcher who had Big Bang and the opening up of the City of London, which was a closed shop, and opening up to the Americans, for example, and the Japanese, and the Europeans. And now, today, London is, Brexit or no Brexit, one of the top 2 financial centers in the world at any time. And that all goes back to opening up. And similarly, India opening up. And India's had huge amounts of foreign exchange receipts from its overseas diaspora. Now, the 30 million people of Indian origin who live around the world, including the nearly 2 million in the UK, are now a source of great pride to India. They were looked upon as a brain drain, but now they're actually looked upon as a huge asset for India, and they're doing incredibly well. I mean, here in this country, I'm proud to say, and I'm sorry if I boast, that the Indians have reached the very top, whether it's Prime Minister or the biggest businesses or academia or Nobel Prizes. Indians have done it. In America, I mean, some of the biggest companies in the world, whether it's Google or whether it's Microsoft or whether it's the head of the World Bank, run by Indians. So this is the diaspora really doing well, and the receipts of hundreds of billions of dollars being repatriated to India, which is really good for the families back home in India. And on top of that, you've got investment now coming in from all over the world into this fastest growing major economy in the world, into manufacturing, where India has a target of 25% of GDP for manufacturing. It's not there yet, but it's getting there.
At least it's got a target.
And it's world-class manufacturing. I chaired the Manufacturing Commission here in Parliament in the UK. In the UK, let's not forget, manufacturing used to make up 30% of GDP. Today it makes up less than 10% of GDP, but yet the UK is still the 11th largest manufacturer in the world in absolute terms, and what we do manufacture is world-class and best of the best, whether it's in aerospace, or whether it's in automobiles, whether it's in defense. We are brilliant manufacturers, and that's something to be proud of, and we need to have a target to increase manufacturing as a percent of GDP in the way that India does.
I agree, and it could also be, in some cases, value-added manufacturing. It could be design included in manufacturing. You know, we need to look at the value chain I think, rather than just the factory.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where the skills of the UK. You have some of the best, I always say, when it comes to creative industries, the UK is renowned for the best advertising agencies, the best architects in the world. You look at people like Norman Foster. You look at people like Thomas Heatherwick. And these are brilliant, brilliant people. And the potential for Thomas Heatherwick, for example, to build in India, which hasn't happened yet, it's only a matter of time.
But I think some of the design and engineering skills in India are second to none as well, but they're not always exposed to the rest of the world. And the digital economy, where you can access a customer anywhere in the world almost any time, actually helps distribute some of those design and engineering skills much more widely. The content industries as well have benefited from distribution. The City of London wouldn't have benefited without connectivity over many, many years. So connectivity in the digital economy are helping people to export and collaborate in different ways altogether.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, people don't know some of these things. If you go to India and see some of the brilliant architecture that exists by modern Indian architects. So you don't go to the ancient, beautiful monuments that you have in India that the world admires. Look at some of the modern architects. The British Council building in Delhi is Charles Correa, a very famous Indian architect. You look at DLF that built Gurgaon by my father's great friends, KP Singh. And who's the architect for that? Hafiz Contractor, a Parsi architect based in India, who's built a whole new city with some fantastic architecture there. And that's Indian talent for India that the world can admire and work with.
It'd be very interesting to talk a little bit about how you see sport moving forward. The Commonwealth Games has just been held in Glasgow, just closed. It wasn't certain that the Commonwealth Games would continue, but fortunately India had said they'll run the 100th Commonwealth Games at Ahmedabad. You call it slightly differently in India, but I call it Ahmedabad. And the plan is for India Commonwealth Games in 2030. You must be a source of pride and leverage, because it's not sport in isolation, is it?
I've been very lucky to have been involved with the Commonwealth Games because when they took place in Birmingham, when I was Chancellor of the University of Birmingham, the University of Birmingham took part more in any global games than any other university ever has in the history of the world. We hosted hockey, we hosted squash. I actually presented the squash medals for the finals along with the Jahangir Khan, the legend, the squash legend. I mean, that was, for me, my gosh, I can't believe I'm here doing this. And we were one of the major sponsors of the games. The athletes' village was at the university. So I saw the Commonwealth Games in action firsthand and the potential of them. And India hosting the games India's the largest country in the Commonwealth. Commonwealth is 2.7 billion people. Over half the population is India. Now, if this group of now coming close to 60 countries, from tiny little island states to a giant like India, and from all over the world, literally every corner of the world, with similar heritage, similar values, similar legal systems, similar ways of doing business, a common identity. No one's forced to join this group. It's completely voluntary. Just imagine the power of that. And the country that can really take the Commonwealth forward is India. And I think hosting the Commonwealth Games is going to be such an important thing. And of course, for India, it's a precursor to hosting the Olympics, which is what India will do in due course. And I think, and I will use an example. When I was president of CBI and on the board of the CBI, I attended the B20 and the G20 when India hosted it. And I was involved in the B7. I chaired the B7, if you remember, the beaches of Cornwall, and when Britain hosted it. And when I saw India hosting that B20, G20, they knocked the ball out of the park. For a whole year, they had over 50 events and different themes, culminating with this giant event, which was so impressive in every way. Now, when India does something today, they can do it better than anyone. And I think they will produce the best ever Commonwealth Games that we've seen in the history of the Commonwealth Games.
I wouldn't be surprised, but it's in my diary already for 2030. So what next in terms of your political career? Clearly you're in the House of Lords. What else can you do next?
I really love being in the House of Lords, being able to contribute, being a crossbench peer, is a very special place to be. I mean, it's unlike any other. The House of Lords is actually unlike any other chamber in the world in many aspects. For example, the fact that we're appointed for life gives us a sense of independence and a long-term view on things. The fact that a minimum 20% of the House of Lords have to be independent crossbench peers that are not aligned to any party. No other parliamentary chamber in the world has that. And that gives the crossbenchers, and I'm proud to say my colleagues, are some of the leading world experts in their fields, whether they're former defense or scientists or medics or lawyers, former cabinet secretaries. It's such an impressive place of talent that we have. And to be part of that has been wonderful. You learn every day you go in there, even if you're not speaking yourself. And to be able to contribute, to make a difference, whether I've done it, for example, with international students, bringing in the 2-year post-graduation work visa. These are things that you can do in the House of Lords, and I like to carry on doing that. What is frustrating is, of course, that because I'm in that position, because of the businesses that I run, I can't, for example, be a minister and be at the dispatch box, which is something, if I did, I'd have to give up the other things. So that is a choice that I've had to make.
But in some ways, you've got the best of both worlds, because you're keeping your foot in business to be ready, grounded, able to help. And your opinion in the House of Lords counts for even more, I would say, because of that independence.
That live, real-world experience that I can bring to bear, as somebody relatively younger all these years, has been a big advantage.
Coming back to the Lords, I'm sure, will be an honour for him as well. But also, now he's not a minister, he can hopefully relax a bit more and contribute just in his specialist areas where the Lords need his help.
Well, here's another example. I remember my wife was talking at a social occasion to a very senior former cabinet minister from the House of Commons who'd just come across the House of Lords and made a minister in the House of Lords. And he said to my wife, he said, when I was in the House of Commons as a minister, and I stood at the dispatch box, I knew more about that topic than any member of the House of Commons, because I'd been briefed by my officials. I had more knowledge and authority on that subject than anyone else in the chamber. He said, in the House of Lords, however well briefed you are, as a minister, they know much more than you do, because they're the world experts. And that's why being a minister in the House of Lords is actually quite a daunting experience. You've got to be really on top of your brief and deal with the best in the world.
But you can always find somebody to give you advice if you need it. And I think that's a good club to be in, if I can call it that.
I mean, if I could tell you stories after stories. I'm going to be going to Gibraltar for their National Day in September. And I remember when I first joined the House of Lords, there was a question on the Gibraltar airport. I said, what an obscure question. And the peer who asked the question said, and the minister obviously knew what the question was, he said, oh, we know what you're talking about. There was a fire engine that crossed the runway when a plane was about to land, and luckily no one was hurt, and the airport's very safe. So the peer said, I was on that plane and I nearly died. So how can you say it's safe? Anyways, the minister then responded, it then opened up. Somebody stood up and said, as a former pilot in the Royal Air Force, I can assure you Gibraltar Airport's a challenging airport to land in. I said, wow, that's amazing. Another peer stood up, your noble lord is not the only one. I too was a pilot in the Royal Air Force, and I've also flown in Gibraltar Airport, and it's very difficult. I said, this is incredible. The next thing, the peer next to me stood up, as a former governor of Gibraltar, may I? Now, where in the world are you going to get that?
No, I fully agree. But I think it's an honour to have you in the House of Lords, so thank you for your contributions.
It's my privilege and my honour.
In terms of your regular visits to India, you presumably will continue with missions, some of your relationships will continue. Do you see that slowing down at all?
As long as my health permits, no. And my visits, I will go, without exaggeration, to India maybe 8 times a year. And what is good is my family is still there. My 90-year-old mother, my brother, my uncles, aunts, cousins, all around India, from Hyderabad to Bombay to Ahmedabad to Delhi, Dehradun. And so I always make a point of trying to see my mother, even if it's for a day or two on my visits. I see my old uncle in Bombay, who's over 90. My family means a lot to me. And I come from the smallest minority community in the world, the Zoroastrian Parsi community. And in the whole of India, out of 1.45 billion people, there are only 57,000 Parsis. And everyone in India knows who a Parsi is, I'm proud to say, and we've made a good contribution.
One of the other things we had at the previous meeting with the High Commissioner was a discussion around AI and
Yes.
languages.
Yes.
And one of the obvious areas where I think India can show some leadership is in AI, but with languages that are spoken, because there are so many languages that are spoken. I sometimes worry that there's not enough attention with AI and all the spoken languages that need it. You know, it's all very well addressing the colonial languages or perhaps the top most spoken languages, but there are many others that need some help. Do you have any thoughts on AI and languages?
Well, again, here's the irony of it. Who is our AI minister here in
Yeah.
India? Kanishka Narayan, born in Bihar,
Yeah.
and then family moved here, educated over here in America, is our AI minister
Yeah.
of Indian origin. And I now chair an AI company. In fact, it's a fantastic new company to do with AI agents,
Yeah.
but having agents based on the personality of the individual. So going into the way the individual thinks, which is very interesting, not just for the creative industries, but across the board. So potential is huge. What I'm seeing, to answer your point specifically, India is very much part of this AI rocket growth rate. I mean, it's phenomenal, the pace at which AI, since it really, and ChatGPT was released just a few years ago, look how far we've come in that time. I'm doing some doctoral research at Cambridge University, and when I started 3.5 years ago, I was told, if you use AI in your research, you will be expelled from Cambridge. Now I'm being told by my supervisors, you must use AI. And the power of AI, when I'm analyzing my field work, it's saving me, I'm not exaggerating, months of work, which I would have had to do manually, going through transcripts of interviews. And it's at an instant. And the angles at which you can look at things is so powerful. So India, where languages are concerned, you look at, I mean, sometimes I get WhatsApps from my team in India in Hindi. It's already happening. I mean, it's just in basic communication. So what you're talking about is happening already. It is not, a country like India, with the resource it has and the technical power it has, it's all happening already.
I hope it is inclusive of a wide range of languages. It's not just Hindi and English.
No. I'm talking about Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, Marathi, Gujarati, Bengali, and these are all major languages. So,
and I think that needs to be made more visible outside of India as well. So the diaspora that need it are part of it. The television industry that need it need to understand that.
Yes.
I don't think it's as visible yet as it should be. So I think we're going to need to wrap up soon, but one of the other things that I should say is that Tech Tuesday has had a community running for a few years now and close to, well, over 100,000 viewers on YouTube. In terms of the diaspora that might be following this podcast, are there some messages about how they should engage with you when it comes to Anglo-Indian matters? Clearly they'll enjoy the podcast, I'm sure, but there may need to be a follow-up of some sort.
What I would say is, growing up, you always heard about the American dream, and these stories of people living the American dream. Well, the UK that I've come to from the early 80s has transformed from a country where there was a glass ceiling. My family told me in India, if you ever decide to stay on and work in the UK after your studies, remember you'll never get to the top, because you will not be allowed to get to the top as a foreigner and an ethnic minority. And I'm sorry to say, and I'm ashamed to say, 4 decades ago they would have been absolutely right. There was a glass ceiling. Now that glass ceiling has been shattered. And today I believe this is a country where anyone can get anywhere regardless of race, religion, or background. And my great-grandfather's motto, my mother's grandfather, he in many ways has been a huge inspiration to me in the way that my late father, General Bilimoria, has been an inspiration in his leadership that I've learned from him. And my great-grandfather was an entrepreneur, was a public servant, was a philanthropist, was a great family man, and he was a member of the Indian House of Lords, the Rajya Sabha. So in many ways, 4 generations later, I followed in his footsteps, not in India, but here in the UK. And I would not have been able to do that if this country had not transformed in the way that it has. And that's what my message is. This is a country of great opportunity. Of course, we've got more to do and we've got to go further. And my great-grandfather's motto was aspire and achieve. And it is so true. I've added to that. So my motto is to aspire and achieve against all odds with integrity. And that's almost a definition of entrepreneurship. You come up with an idea, you want to get somewhere with the idea, you've got all the odds stacked against you, you've got little or no means, and you go out there and you make it happen, but most importantly, you do it the right way. And then the sky is the limit. And that is what I live by. And if you think about it, when I go to award ceremonies and I present awards, I say, congratulations on winning an award. It feels great winning an award. But the important thing about an award is not only are you satisfied with it, your award should be inspiring others to achieve and inspiring them to aspire. And that aspiration leads to achievement, which leads to inspiration, which leads to aspiration. It's a virtuous circle.
Well, I think your contribution to Tech Tuesday is inspiring today, so thank you for playing a part. I'm sure the motto will be taken on board as well. I don't believe the glass ceiling is anywhere near as hard as it used to be. I know I'm older than you, but I also remember some of the breakthrough bands of the 1960s that started to change things, like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. I also remember some of the other changes that have occurred over the last few years. So I think the glass ceiling may still be there in some quarters, but it's nowhere near as thick as it used to be, and breaking through it with talent, I think, is the right thing to do with the motto you described. So thank you, Karan, Lord Bilimoria, for today's Tech Tuesday. Let's enjoy the reaction from the audience.
Thank you. It's very kind of you, and a great pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was Lord Karan Bilimoria in discussion with Dr. Mike Short, CBE, and that was the Tech Tuesday UK podcast this afternoon. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this, and please let us know your views. We're going to be streaming this across YouTube, across Amazon, and Spotify and Apple. So yeah, I mean, stay tuned. Keep following across LinkedIn, following across Twitter, and all the other social media channels. Our handles remain the same, which is #TechTuesdayUK. Yeah, see you till next time. Thank you.